Good morning. Just at my usual sit spot and listening to these beautiful song thrush, especially. There's been other birds as well. There's a robin. There's been a wren. I can hear parakeets. Yeah, the song thrush is particularly. There's a couple of them sort of chatting to one another, I believe. And there's a moor hen there, and actually, yeah, just I was just reflecting on the way that language and the way that we express ourselves. Our human language actually gives us a particular way of seeing and a particular way of thinking, and it really, really shapes how we perceive the world. And so it's quite different for birds, I believe. And I was really reflecting on how they communicate and, what those conversations might be. Recognising that birds don't just use their sort of vocal communication, audible communication, they also use body language a lot, actually. I just remember in the spring, this sort of, the way the chicks behave, not just vocalising, but with their sort of wings and, general sort of body language. Courtship rituals, sort of grebes, quite famously. Sort of the great crested grebes sort of have quite a famous courtship ritual. It involves their body language. So yeah, there's a really sort of rich thing there about how language can open up our way of seeing the world. It sort of opens up relationship, but it might also limit it. It might also take us down one particular way of seeing in preference to others. And so there's this invitational ways to go beyond the words, go beyond the language. How else do we communicate? What's our heart language? What's our body language? What are the things that we can perceive but we don't have words for? And here's a thing. So I don't have words for this, but I'm sure that science does. But if you look at the surface of the water, you can actually tell the temperature. Very crudely, I couldn't do it down to the sort of nearest degree, that you can tell that it's close to freezing, because of the way that the surface of the water, it has this kind of, I call it kind of glassy quality, and you can sort of see where it's approaching that sort of ice formation. There are these parts where it's kind of almost, forming these sort of solid, like lines. It's not solid, it's still liquid, but there are some kind of patches, really, really difficult to describe. So I don't have words for it, but I'm hoping that you can see that on the video. And just fascinating. Water's endlessly fascinating to watch. But the water's telling us about the world without words. We can observe this and know this. Those kind of little whirls, they're just like dents on the surface. These kind of not quite icy patches. It's just fascinating. And then you see the behaviour, the water getting up towards the as the water's getting close to boiling. You can just by observing water tell a lot about conditions. I can tell as well from the river quite a lot about what's going on upstream, by what's coming downstream. There's a question there about can we tell what season it is? Certainly with this cold, you could get a sense of that, but also, you know, whether there are leaves coming down or flowers. The river's quite high at the moment, so I've got to, you know that there's been heavy rain recently. It's impacted quite a lot by human activities, and very sadly you can see that there have been heavy rains because it's gathering all the litter. I very much want to get a kayak and just go and collect that and clear it before it gets, you know, dislodged and carried further downstream. But you know, so there's some, yeah, there's lots here. This is kind of getting the news locally, listening to the birds. You know, so the birds are really talking to us about the season as well. There are changes through the year. You know, the song thrushes have become really vocal. There's kind of more and more voices adding to that sort of dawn-ish chorus. And things just starting to pick up in the land. See the very early buds forming on the oak here as well. And the sun is just, this is the benefit of having a daily sit spot. You know, for the past sort of month or so, the sun's not made it up past these brambles, and now you can tell we're near Imbolc because the sun is sort of reaching me here in my sit spot, just making it at this time in the morning above the brambles that I can actually see the sun. Anyway, through December, the sun was down below the brambles, and you know, by having this sort of regular connections, regular spots, just noticing the subtle changes, really start to get in contact with the seasons in a way that's perhaps more difficult when you're not sort of making a daily or near daily connection. Some of last year's nettles, some of them have completely died back, some still have leaves on, but this was a real sort of thicket of nettles before. So, and this kind of comes to another important thing. So last week they were out and they cut these brambles back really heavily, and you know, this is a contractor. They're using very heavy machinery, so the machinery's gone across the tree roots and has made quite a deep impression on the ground here. It's left sort of imprints, and one of the things that I'm really keenly aware of, you know, these brambles, there's been, so this place particularly, there's been a little sort of wren territory, but lots and lots of birds finding refuge in these brambles, and I can understand, you know, they want to kind of cut it back so it's not encroaching further on the grassland, but actually it's now it's not providing much cover at all. And even at this time of year when the birds aren't breeding, nesting, you know, they're still finding refuge in these fabulous, I mean, over the other side, because it's inaccessible to people. It's just got this really, last year there were lots and lots of redwing and clearly enjoying the ivy berries, but you know, there were lots of redwing in that space. But yeah, it's, I guess the thing that I'm saying here is actually having people that have a connection to a place, who really understand what's going on a day-by-day basis. You know, they know the animals and the plants and the, you know, the trees, the ways, you know, really what's going on. You know, what birds are here, what insects, you know, how everything kind of fits together by having people that have a very local connection. And then listening to that, and in turn those people really listening to the land and the wildlife, and you know, it's a much better way of kind of making decisions about how we can help, than having this kind of generic, somebody who's maybe not got any connection at all with the place, but has considerable knowledge of, managing land, but perhaps quite an old, how can I, the sort of academic. That's the way I want to describe it. Which has real value and importance, but I want to advocate for that partnership with local people and community, and and also to advocate for us really bringing in our connection with place, our connection with the land, really doing that sort of deep listening, and the things which this brings me back to, it goes beyond words. It's that real kind of what you call field knowledge, and just knowing that something that might work in somewhere that on paper is classed as being the same, wouldn't work here, because that does happen. These relationships are really complex, and sometimes we condense things down into pretty broad categories. So yeah, that's where I'll leave that here, really, is just to sort of advocate for the partnership between the sort of the intellect and the academic, and sort of knowledge in that way, to more of a sort of land-based knowledge, and more of those those really vital local people who have quite often a great knowledge of the history and how things would have been before, and that we importantly need to be making sure that future generations have that history, that we can pass these things to them, that's not sort of lost when people move on. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Quite a long one today, sorry.